Hi guys, I'm Johnny from the PE Tutor. Thanks for taking your time to watch today's mini lesson. It's actually from a series that we've just finished putting together for all of our Level 2 BTEC Sport students. So if you are studying for that Unit 1 exam, or you're a teacher and you have your own students preparing for that exam, then please do subscribe to this channel, and you can use all of our mini lessons uploaded here on YouTube, or click on the link below. We've actually just finished putting together a free flashcard pack for all students and teachers alike to use to really help you prepare for that exam. Anyway, hope you enjoy the lesson and I'll see you again soon. So today we're going to look at sprint training, and there's three different types that you need to know about. The first is accelerative sprint training, the second is interval sprint training, and the third is hollow sprint training. The reason for three different methods is because we have three different types of speed that we should aim to be developing in a performer. The three different types of speed are acceleration speed, speed endurance, and total speed. Acceleration speed is the time it takes a performer to go from complete rest to their maximum speed potential. The quicker a performer can do this, the better it will be for their sporting performance. For example, in rugby, the forwards want to have as much acceleration speed as possible so that when the fly half or one of the centres on the opposition receive the ball, they can charge them down as quickly as possible, giving them less time to think about the pass they're playing, or less time to think about what sort of sidestep they might play to try and negotiate their way around the defender. Speed endurance is the performer's ability to complete maximum sprints, one after the other, with little to no rest. In other words, how many times could a performer repeatedly sprint close to or at their maximum intensity in a row? For example, in basketball, when players are sprinting up and down the court repeatedly, they might need to be subbed off for a long or more extensive break if their speed endurance isn't up to standard and their sprint speed starts to drop as they repeat more and more of these total course sprints. And finally, we have a performer's total speed, or maximum speed. Quite simply, this is the fastest that they can move. So we have three different types of speed, therefore we have three different types of speed training to target each of them. Acceleration sprint training is ideally suited to develop a performer's acceleration speed. One repetition in acceleration sprint training involves a performer starting from absolute rest and then moving as quickly as they can over shorter distance as possible to reach their maximum speed. As soon as they hit that speed, they then stop, they then rest, and they return to their starting position. It's important adequate time is given for the performer to fully recover from their first repetition, so that then they can again fully apply themselves to try and hit that maximum speed as quickly as possible in the next repetition. What a performer is working on here is the technique in order to go from rest to maximum speed. This might mean altering the cadence of their steps, the distance of their stride length, or maybe the movement actions of their arms or legs. A performer coach could begin to tailor this type of training to a performer's sport by using the distances that they have to run or accelerate over in their sport in the training sessions as well. So for a forward in rugby who's likely to sprint 8, 9, 10 metres before they can actually put in a tackle, that's what they're going to be practicing in acceleration sprint training. Our second method of sprint training is hollow sprint training. This method is suited to develop speed endurance. It involves the performer fluctuating between high intensity and low intensity periods of work. An example could be that a performer completes a 50-metre sprint at 90% of their maximum intensity, followed by a walk back to the start. As soon as they reach the start, they turn and they complete another 50-metre run, again at 90% of their maximum intensity. A performer should aim to complete this repetition as many times as possible, challenging their body to recover appropriately on that low intensity period of work, to then apply themselves close to maximum again and again and again. We're forcing the body to respire anaerobically to then recover in a short period of time to then go again. Just like with acceleration sprint training, a performer or coach can tailor hollow sprint training to their particular sport. What they would need to look at is what intensity they usually work at in high intensity periods and how long they tend to have resting before they have to repeat that period of high intensity work. So in the instance of our rugby forward, it might be that there's 45 seconds on average between the ruck or breakdown that they're involved with. So in training, they should give themselves a period of high intensity work followed by roughly 45 seconds of rest or low intensity work. And our last method is interval sprint training, which is ideally suited to developing a performer's total or maximum speed. In this method of training, a performer starts from rest, achieves their maximum speed, and then maintains it for a predetermined length of time or distance. At the end of this, the performer then takes complete rest and ensures that the next time they complete a repetition, they are fully prepared and they're recovered from the previous. In interval sprint training, the performer should always be able to perform close to or at their maximum speed. Interval sprint training wouldn't work if a performer is still fatigued from their previous sprint. Each repetition should mean the performer is pushing and testing their body at its limit. And if they're fatigued, they won't be able to do this and they won't be able to practice at their maximum speed. One advantage of sprint training is that it can be tailored to suit the performer's sport. We can look at their sporting context and we can tailor-make training sessions to include speeds, distances and times relevant to them. A second benefit of sprint training is that if a performer is completing runs, then it won't require any specialist equipment. As long as a performer or coach has a stopwatch, a tape measure and markers, they can effectively complete sprint training. And a third benefit of sprint training is that it's very easy to incorporate progressive overload. It's very numerically based. We look at numbers, we look at distances, we look at times and speeds, all of which we can track over time very easily, and we can make training sessions harder and harder in time, causing the performer to progress. However, with sprint training there are a few negatives. The first one being that it is quite repetitive, which could lead to tedium or boredom setting in. A second negative of sprint training is that the performer is completing it at high or maximum intensity. This does increase the risk of potential injury. And finally, a third negative of sprint training is that it does require planning and specialist knowledge. A coach will need to have an in-depth understanding of the sporting context that's being trained for, as well as keeping an accurate record of times, distances and speeds achieved in weeks previously. So, to summarise sprint training, we have 3 different types of speed, and to match those we have 3 different types of training methods. Accelerative speed is from rest to maximum speed and is ideally suited to acceleration sprint training. Speed endurance is how many times a performer can reach maximum speed until fatigue kicks in and their sprint speed starts to tail off. And hollow sprint training is a great method for developing this. And total speed or maximum speed is how fast the performer can go at their best. And interval training is the ideal method to progress this. Hollow sprint training is the fluctuation between high and low intensity work periods. Acceleration sprint training is when a performer goes from rest to maximum and then stops. And interval sprint training is when a performer goes from rest to maximum speed and holds it for a predetermined distance or time before resting completely before their second attempt. There are many advantages when it comes to sprint training, the main ones being that it's easy to tailor to a specific sport, and it's very easy to incorporate progressive overload because we have all the data, times and distances from previous weeks that we can build on and progress to cause a performer to get better. The negatives, however, are that it can be very boring because it's quite a repetitive method of training. The performer is working at high intensities, which increases the risk of injury. And due to the amount of times, distances and speeds being recorded, the coach needs to know the ins and outs of the performer's sporting context in order to be able to create and design an effective training schedule. So that's sprint training. I hope you found that mini lesson useful. If you did, then feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can be kept updated with all the video and content that we're going to be bringing. Alternatively, if you want to know more about our services such as tuition or teaching and learning resources, then visit us at petutor.com and reach out to our team. I look forward to seeing or hearing from you soon.